Moving Iron Podcast is proud to be part of the Global Ag Network. The network is live, so check out globalagnetwork.com for more details and updates. Now on to the show.
Moving iron in the 21st century. Hard-working people working hard for you and me. Moving iron time and time again. Through the years you'll find us here. Moving iron.
Hello and welcome to Moving Iron Podcast Market Rundown with Chip Nellinger. Chip, how you doing this morning?
Hey, pretty good. We finally bucking the trend here. We've had, I think, almost 48 hours without rains. So it's, we don't know what to do here in Illinois.
Yeah, I'm sure. We're the same way. We've gone a little bit here without any moisture, and quite frankly, I don't know what to do with myself. It's something way out of the norm right now, but we did have kind of had those isolated thunderstorms all weekend in the evening time around.
Yeah, our rains are supposed to come back Tuesday, so it is an all-out sprint. I've heard some kind of horror stories. I get it. I'm not criticizing anyone at all. Don't hear me say that. But at this point, our insurance debate in Illinois, Indiana, and Ohio is, I believe it's Friday, the 5th. And the rains are supposed to come back starting Tuesday and the rest of the week, at least in this local area here, give or take 30, 40-mile radius of Peoria, Illinois. We're just getting 3 to as much as 6 inches of rain the rest of the week is what they're forecasting right now. So guys are mudding it in. I wouldn't be probably catching the right term. Trying to get some seed in ground. If you get it in by the 5th, at least you're covered under your full amount of insurance. Everyone's different. Some people are going to take pre-plant plant on some acre. Some guys are trying to get some of the drier stuff in. It's an absolute mess in many areas. Planters getting stuck, and roads not closing back up. It's kind of a mess here, but it is what it is because June. Where are we? June 3rd here. 3rd. I don't know what we are, but it is June. I know that, and you shouldn't be starting to plant corn right now, and that's what some producers face, literally. So yep. It's a bad situation. The market's a little bit lower here as we speak. Actually turning, and with the exception of wheat, corn has turned a little bit higher. More rain's coming for the plains, more rain's coming for us in the eastern corn belt. Even the bean market here, there's untold millions of acres that are going to go in the ground in June. You can't count on 70 bushel beans when you're putting them in, pick your date in June. So right. It's a very dynamic market that we're facing, and it will be for many months to come as we debate the acreage and the yield and prevent plant. Unfortunately, there's not just a button they can push here in 6 or 8 weeks and tell you exactly how many. Well, there is, but they refuse to do that. So we're going to debate the prevent plant acres most likely till January, and yield until probably January as well. And this market is way different than what we're used to in the last, say, 14, 18 months. So a lot of volatility, a lot of ways to make poor decisions, a lot of ways to make good decisions too. But you got to have a plan and execute it. All
right. So the first soybean insurance date's coming up here in June 5th. It's just a few days out. On Wednesday, George Burkhaw and I are going to have a crop insurance webinar here live on Twitter. But what's it look like on June 5th when that day comes and goes, and we're still looking at prevent plant now on soybeans instead of corn at this point?
Yeah, honestly, it's such a case-by-case scenario. With prevent plant, there's lots and lots of issues and moving parts around that. Comes down to what crop insurance you have, what coverage. The higher the coverage, maybe the more that starts making sense. Guys with lower coverage levels, 75, 80%. Or if you have, nitrogen and chemicals, fertilizer down on the ground, they're the ones maybe rushing to get some seed in the ground. So it's such an individual case-by-case scenario. There's a lot of minute details surrounding the prevent plant issue. There will be some of that. There's just no question. It's, even here, just walking in yards, it's saturated. I've just never seen anything like it. There will be by far a new record amount of prevent plant acres in the country. But it is really a tough decision, and producers, maybe the tougher decision is around that. Do I keep planting after the 5th? What's the forecast look like then? You put seed in the ground after the 5th in the Eastern Corn Belt, at least corn, you lose 1% a day up until, I believe, the 20th, where there's technically no more coverage. So it's producers have a hard enough time dealing with, not only last fall was, a horrendous fall, but it just kept raining, snowing, hasn't quit. So producers really haven't had time to get their head above water and take a breath, and now they're faced with all these decisions about prevent plan and all the issues surrounding late planning here.
Yeah. All right, so let's bounce over to the couple things. One is, on Thursday night, Friday, whenever it was, Trump talked about slapping some tariffs on Mexico in order to get them to, quote unquote, enforce their own laws so that we could enforce our laws when it came to immigration. Which, whatever, we got the new NAFTA done, and then not too long after that happened. What was the market's reaction to that over the weekend, and do you think what we see now as prices going a little bit lower now having to do with that, or do you think it's just a typical volatility you would see in a market like this?
Yeah, I think that would have added a tremendous amount of volatility. We were down on Friday. That tariff announcement to Mexico was a shock to the market. If it weren't for the wet weather and the delayed planning here, that would have hit the market harder than it did. But it's definitely something that affects the market. China's right now, or I should say Mexico is right now, I believe they're number one right now. Usually they're number two importer of U.S. corn. I think for this past marketing year, they're number one. They also buy a large amount of soy meal, soybeans, pork, all kinds of other agricultural products, major agricultural trading partner, obviously. And so it's not a good development from the ag front. It's just, again, it's like farmers can't win for losing here. They have been fighting this China tariff issue, trade war for well over a year. Horrible fall, horrible winter, horrible spring, horrible planning, and now we're going to tariff the number one or two biggest buyer of U.S. corn. So it's been a year to forget, I guess, as far as production and trade issues go. But it is a big deal, and it's a work in progress. We don't know how that's going to progress, and that's not even trade related. That's more political and immigration and border related. But nonetheless, President Trump is using tariffs to, try to enact some sort of a change out of Mexico. And that escalates every month, right? So I believe what is next week, that first 5% goes in, and then every month thereafter it increases all the way up to 25%. So that's going to ramp up the volatility and the rhetoric and the importance of this thing real quickly.
Yeah, I don't quite get that one either, but whatever. They have okay. So let's talk about the cattle complex for a little bit. Cattle market's been kind of up and down every other week. It feels like 1 week they're up, next week they're down. They're kind of bouncing all over the place. A lot of volatility in that market, having to do with, I'm sure, with how the stock market has been reacting to various things going on in the world. One day the stock market's up big, the next day it's down big. So talk about the cattle complex and what you see happening there.
Yeah, cattle had a real ugly close on Friday. It was the end of a month, so let's hope we can chalk it up to that. But we had major selling on the close on Friday in cattle. The sharply higher corn prices here the last a few weeks have really done a number on feeder cattle. So feeders have kind of led the cattle market lower. And then we had heavy selling pressure. So the funds are still long cattle, a much more manageable position But boy, at the end of the month, there on Friday, really hit that market hard. Part of the issue here is there's a little bit of concern about domestic demand, right? I mean, it's been hard to, fit a grilling session in between rains, and so there's a little bit of concern that domestic demand of pork and beef both have taken a little bit of a hit here, and hopefully we can see some better weather into the summer. But pretty ugly close Friday in feeders especially, and live cattle. Hopefully it was kind of the last gasp and last puke from the funds there, but this morning we'll tell a little more of the story. Hopefully we can stabilize this thing and start talking about a bounce. We're into June now, and usually you see a seasonal low come to the market in the first half of June in the beef market. So hopefully that follows through as normal and will help give us a little bit of a buying interest. And hopefully we can turn the corner and see some better weather across big chunks of the U.S. to maybe kickstart demand a little bit as well.
Yep. Yeah, it's kind of tough to go out and fire up the grill when it's raining inches at a time. It makes it a little difficult.
But it's I tell you, it's tough, and chilly, cold, nasty weather, and then finally it warms up, and literally just torrential rain after torrential rain. So it's been a challenge everywhere you look, and the pork side too. Talking about the hog side real quickly. You saw China back in for U.S. pork again last week. On Thursday, second week, I guess it was announced Friday because of Memorial Day holiday, but second week in a row. But that was in the face of these Mexican trade tariff announcements, and that took a little bit of the steam out of what probably would have been sharply higher hogs. So very, very influential. The hog market. I mean, it's probably faced one of the most, if not the most bullish situations ever. All time in hogs, but now you've got Chinese tips and Mexican tips, and it really throws a monkey wrench in things. So, tough time to navigate these markets any which way you look at it.
Yep, absolutely true. So I've read a couple articles now where they've, where they've talked about AFS in Vietnam now, and they talked about it being up in North Korea and thought about maybe even in South Korea too. So, pretty much Asia is pretty well consumed by the African swine fever, so it's a bad deal over there, and it's hopefully it turns out into something good for the U.S. pork producer.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely, if we ever start getting news from the trade perspective and start getting some agreements and get some of these tips behind us, there's plenty of friendly things in the world. I mean, that ASF issue. Despite the talk that they're working on a vaccine, it just seems like it's getting worse and worse, and kind of spreading to other areas of Asia, particularly Vietnam. Yep. Sounds like it doesn't sound like they've got it very under control in China. So serious issues happening from that front, and longer term, I think that you could still expect a lot of support in the hog market. Longer term, but we got to navigate some turbulence here in the short run because of the Mexican situation.
Right on. All right, Chip. Well, plenty of stuff going on, and never a better time to have a plan in place. If folks want to reach out to you and talk about a plan or have you help them devise one, how would they do it?
Yeah, best way is just give us a call, 309-550-7213. Love to chat with you. Challenging times, you got to have a plan. And you got to be willing to execute that plan and change it as conditions change. So we'd love to chat with you, 309-550-7213.
Right on. And do not forget to tune in Wednesday the 5th here, coming up here with George Burkhaw, myself, doing that live webinar on crop insurance and what that looks like moving forward. So that's at 6 o'clock here, live on Twitter. So, Chip, thanks for your time, buddy, and have a good week.
All right. We'll talk to you in a week.
Sounds good, bud.
All right. Thanks.
Thanks for listening to this edition of the Moving Iron Podcast, now part of the Global Ag Network. If you'd like to continue any of these conversations, you can hit me up on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram at Moving Iron LLC. You can also send me an email at movingironpodcast@movingironpodcast.com. You can also visit the Moving Iron Podcast YouTube channel and watch Market Roundup with Chip Nellinger, Sean Hackett, and Angie Setzer. Also, Tax News with Glenn Birnbaum. Please visit movingironllc.com. Here you can find information, details, and updates for the 2019 Moving Iron Summit in Nashville, Tennessee. If you'd like to support the podcast, you can leave a review and subscribe at iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher Radio, TuneIn Radio, SoundCloud, and globalagnetwork.com. So until next time, let's go move some iron. This is Casey Seymour. Out.
Moving iron in the 21st century.